Without further ado, let's start with number one in Class 1A, Illini Bluffs, team that made it to the Super Sectional last year and got knocked off at the buzzer by Jabot, who ended up winning state, and they bring back a big one, 6'9" Lehigh commit Hank Alvey.
Yeah, and they have three other starters coming back with him. They set the school record for wins last year. They'll probably break that record this year. A really easy selection for number one in 1A. Hank Alvey is a difference maker on both ends of the court. They can run offense through him. He is, he's a really good elbow and in player. He may, he may flash a 3-point shot here or there, and he's a legit rim protector. And they're going to be a load, and they're going to have a few tests coming out of the gate. I think they play Rock Ridge at the A-Town shootout before Christmas, and then they're in the Macomb Holiday Tournament with Rock Ridge is in that. Eureka, the two-time defending champ. So they'll be challenged coming into the postseason, and they are going to have a big target on their back.
No doubt, and that's a team that's definitely on a mission going forward, especially they went out last year. So they'll be fun to watch going forward. Moving right along, we've got Tuscola coming in at number 2, who ended up making it to state last year, but got eliminated in the semifinal by Scales Mountain. They bring back 6'2" senior Jordan Quinn.
Yeah, Justin Bozarth is a graduate of Tuscola. I don't know if he was 2003 or somewhere in there, early 2000s. This is his 7th season at the helm. Won 125 games already. They can absolutely win state. They're a guard heavy lineup. They're in a really nice conference, the Central Illinois Conference, with Macon Meridian, Clinton, Warrensburg. I think they kicked St. T out last year, but they've done a decent job of improving the strength of schedule compared to previous years. And they had an up and down year last year. That the win loss record wasn't, I think maybe they had 7 or 8 losses, but they may only have 2 or 3 losses going into the postseason this year.
And that should again be another loaded sectional going into this season, which should be fun to watch. So
yeah, the northern half of that South Super Sectional is really, really tough.
No doubt. Looking forward to that. Coming in at number 3, we've got Pecatonica. Again, they will be in another loaded sectional up there in the northwest corner. And they're bringing back junior 6'3" Cooper Hoffman.
Yep, he's a superb athlete on the gridiron. He's a superb athlete on the hardwood. He's going to play college sports for at least one sport. I don't know if he's going to try to be a dual threat at the next level or not. This is a 2-year window for them to really have an opportunity to bring home some hardware. A lot of juniors on the roster, and then I think they'll end up probably starting 2 seniors. They've also made a cognizant effort of trying to improve the late season strength of schedule. They got Neuqua Valley on the schedule. They moved the Rockford Christian game from December to February. The division of the NUIC they're in is not great. It wasn't great last year. It's not going to be really good this year. We're going to have to pay attention to the out-of-conference results for them to gauge where they're going to be.
No doubt. And then let's move on to St. Anthony out of Effingham. And they were, again, in that loaded section with Tuscola last year, and they bring back a 6'2" junior, Brock Fairday.
Yep, Cody Rinker. He's been there about a decade now. He's averaging 22, 23 wins a year. They won state in what year they won state? 2016 or 17. A lot of varsity proven players coming back. They're gonna win the National Trail Conference. Well, they absolutely should. Their strength of schedule will prepare them. Their holiday tournament or their Thanksgiving tournament that they host has 2 A's and 3 A's, and then there's one 4A school in it. I think Belleville East is in it this year. They're in the Effingham T-Town holiday tournament. So at the end of the year, their record won't be as impressive as some of the other teams that are going to be in this top 10, but they'll be seasoned and they'll be tested.
And that's all that's necessary going into that postseason. As long as you're rolling, you're battle tested, you should be on a roll. So Checking in at number 5, we've got Winchester Bluffs West Central, headlined by Zach Evans, Mason Berry, Chance Little, and they've got a sophomore, Riker Ford. What can you tell us about them, Aaron?
Well, they didn't win a regional last year. Uh, they got knocked off in the regional final. They had an up and down year. I don't think they were healthy for the entire year. If they can remain healthy, their starting five is strong enough where they should be favored to win that sectional. Their super sectional opponent would be, at least on paper, Illini Bluffs. So that would be an uphill battle because they don't have the size to contend with Illini Bluffs in a straight up fashion. But I like them to win the Western Illinois Valley Conference. The Winchester tournament that they host is one of the best small school tournaments in the state. I think it's the oldest invitational tournament in the state. Uh, so I'm interested in how they start the season if they're going to remain healthy. Uh, I really like what they're bringing back.
Yeah, I think that was the 100th Winchester Invitational, I'm pretty sure, last year. So it's been around for quite some time. Fun team we've got checking in at 6 is Scales Mountain. They've had back-to-back seasons of going to state after they really I think kind of surprised a lot of people going back to back, but they ended up making it back to the championship. And they've got a trio of seniors coming back: Thomas Hero, Jonah Driscoll, and Max Weenan.
Yeah, a very interesting fact about this team. 2 years ago, they get down there, they graduate all five starters, and they come back and they do it again. And I don't know how many times in IHSA history that's ever been done. It wouldn't be real difficult to dig through history and see how many times it has been done, but there's no way that it's been many. So it says a lot about the kids that were coming behind that group 2 years ago, and it also speaks to, especially in small schools, how important it is to just get the ball rolling and keep the ball rolling. Sometimes winning just begets more winning, and that's how programs start. That's how programs keep it rolling for more than just one special class here or there. But they definitely have it rolling right now, and they're going to win 30 games again. They've averaged 34 wins the last 2 years. Eric Kudranowicz, he's been there for about 18 years. He's been there through the lean years, through the fat years. He's got to be enjoying where his program's at right now.
Yeah, and it's fun for the community, especially for how small that school is. It's fun to root for a community like that. Coming in at number 7, we've got Aurora Christian. They've got a trio of some really exciting sophomores with Marshawn Cocroft, Jalen Carter, and Jacob Bauman.
And they dropped to 1A, which has always benefited them over the years. Every year they've been 1A. They've won a regional. The last time that they were 1A, they got down to Peoria, and then the COVID thing wiped everything out. And I know they thought they had a team that could have won 2 games down there and bring home a state title. And they're in that new Chicagoland Christian Conference. It's a really nice small school conference. Christ the King is in it. Bishop Mack, Wheaton Academy, St. Ed, Hope Academy's in it. And so they only play everybody once in that conference. I would have preferred if they'd have played everybody twice and you could get a real sense of a true champion coming out of that conference. But that conference is going to be great for everyone in it. And I think they're going to be a sectional favorite coming out of that west side of Chicago, western suburban sectional that feeds into DeKalb.
Cameron Morrell was another player I really enjoyed watching, especially on the football field. He's a 6'3" senior and will be one of the leaders, no doubt, on that team. So at number 8, we've got Calvary out of Springfield, and they've got a real duo with senior Connor Brown, who's 6'3", and then another 6'3" sophomore, Luke Blackford.
Yeah, Luke Blackford had one of the most productive seasons of any freshman in the state last year. I don't know his projectability for the next level, but he's a very good high school player, and he's going to be very good for the next 3 years. Calvary has to replace their point guard. Uh, he moved to Lanphier. Uh, so that, in my opinion, that limits what they can do in the postseason. I don't know if they can win a state championship without him. I'm not sure that they can win a sectional without him, but they're going to win a lot of games. They're just going to be a fun team to watch because, as you mentioned, Connor Brown along with Luke Blackford, they're a really nice duo, especially in 1A.
Moving on to number 9, we've got Lexington with 4 really solid seniors coming back in Ethan Storm, Griffin Hari, Michael Olson, and Hayden Sennett, name a few.
Yeah, there's a combination of things happening there. They've got back-to-back really nice groups of kids, and then since Doug Yotter's been there, he's really turned things around. They were going through coaches, if not every year, every other year for the last, it seemed like 6 or 7 years before he got there. He's provided stability to that program. They really needed it. And in the last 2 years, they've won a sectional, they won a regional. Last year, they knocked off unbeaten LSA in the sectional, and then they got beat by Cornerstone Christian, who ended up going to state and finishing 4th. So they've been on the cusp of getting to state. This is another opportunity for them to make that happen.
They participate in the Marquette Christmas tournament too, and I actually enjoyed really watching them last year. They actually got knocked off by, it might have been their first loss, by Serena last year in the quarterfinals, and it was one heck of a ball game.
That was a double overtime game.
It was one heck of a game, couple buzzer beaters, and it was everything you could have asked for. So looking forward to watching them again this year. Number 10, we have St. Thomas More, young St. Thomas More team.
There's going to be a couple juniors, Peace Boomba and Andrew Tay, and then Owen Yeager will be a sophomore. They're gonna have one of the better strength of schedules at the end of the year. They're in that Illini Prairie Conference, so they should be able to stay above 500 within that conference. They are in that Cerro Gordo Thanksgiving tournament. They should be able to win that. Argenta Orin is in that. They got a nice team. But they're in the Hayworth Holiday Tournament again. They won that last year. I think they're in the same sectional as Lexington, so they're going to be there. This might be a 2 to 3 year window for them to try to make something happen. I don't know if this is the best team that they've had in the last 10 years, but it may be the best chance for them to get past the sectional round.
Wilson Kirby is one of the seniors to keep an eye on as well for St. Thomas More. Moving on, we've got New Berlin Pretzels with a pair of big forwards, Gannon Dodd and Lucas Bixby, both at 6'5".
Yeah, really nice players, high energy. They're both left-handed. I love left-handers, so that they both have a special place in my heart. Their style of play is not for the faint of heart. I think you saw them last year. They don't hold the ball, but they are not in a hurry offensively, and they will guard you to a point where you might consider quitting playing the game of basketball. They're not a fun team to play against. Their style is like a snowball rolling downhill. You could feel like you're beating them, and you would be beating them all on the scoreboard, and then like 2 to 3 possessions later, it's a tie game. 2 to 3 possessions after that, you're down 6. But because of the style that they play, their margin of error is fairly small, and that's what ended up being their Achilles heel last year in the regional semifinal. Payson was at home in that regional, and they had the spirit with them, and they hit a late corner three. I was watching that game online in the parking lot of the game that I was going to go to that night, and New Berlin tied it. I thought they could get it to overtime and win it, and then hometown Indians hit a 3 at the corner and knocked them off. And they were my number 1 team in 1A going into the postseason, even though they had 8 losses. They tied for the Sangamo, which is not easy to do for a 1A team. So they have expectations to potentially repeat, and then obviously go a little bit further into March than they did last year.
That's a cool gym too. I haven't been over there yet to the Pretzel Dome, but that's definitely one on the bucket list. Thanksgiving tournament should be pretty good this year too. Steamers of Fulton check in at 12, led by 6'6 senior Balin Damoff.
Yeah, they've had really nice teams for the last 6 or 7 years, and only recently have they dumped into 1A. They've won a regional 2 or 3 years ago. They won one last year. I had big expectations from them last year. They battled injuries before Christmas. They weren't really healthy at all until maybe real late. They got hot, and then they reached the sectional final, and Scales knocked them off. But they're going to have enough coming back with Balin Damhoff, who's one of the most athletic kids in the state. So if they're healthy, he plays football. I don't know how many other of the kids play football, but I think they're going to be favored to win that NUIC. Eastland will probably be on their heels, but I'm comfortable with where I have them at 12.
Hayworth is the 13th team ranked here, and they're a very tall squad. Nick Feather is 6'8 senior. Alex Mass, another 6'4 senior. Lucas Garber, 6'5 senior, along with Tyler Wills and Tyler Bartels.
Yeah, from an average starting five height standpoint, if you just base them off of that, they're a top five. They're a top five team. Mike Mosley is their head coach now. He was at Bloomington for quite a few years. Won third in 3A with the Purple Raiders. Stepped back from the game for a few years, but now he's getting that itch to get back on the sideline. He's excited to be there. Players and the community are excited to have him there. And this is a good crop of talented kids for him to mold and try to get them to where they need to be. I thought they were going to be a lot better than they were last year, and all these kids are back for the most part. So they're in the same conference as Lexington, and they'll have the strength of schedule that they need from that HOIC and the remainder of their schedule. It wouldn't surprise me if by Christmas this was a top 10 team.
And they'll be tested right away because they're participating at the Tournament of Champions in Washington, so they're gonna have some tests early on.
Yeah, and that may have been a deciding factor. It was a deciding factor of where I wanted to start them, because they're probably going to start 0-3. And not that those losses really mean anything, but just from a cosmetic standpoint, I don't want a number 4 team coming in starting 0-3. So I had to bump them down a little bit, try to sandbag myself a little bit, I guess.
Jabot, the defending state champions, come in next, led by 6'2 senior Gavin Kessler.
Yeah, 2 starters coming back, including Gavin Kessler. They lost one of their point guards to the transfer portal. He moved down to Florida to play baseball. I think that's going to hurt them quite a bit. I still think they're going to be a good 1A team, and they have the Hall of Famer Dennis Reeder. I mean, he's been coaching there longer than you and I have been alive. So I don't think they can win it or win the entire thing, but they're not going to be a fun team to play in the regional or in the sectional. So I wouldn't put it past them making another run, but losing that point guard is really going to be the difference maker for them, I think.
Next, we've got Hope Academy out of Chicago, led by Chicago high school basketball legend Ronnie Fields. They've got Cameron Centeno, Josh Dillon, Michelle Knepp, Trayvon Prince, and they've got a sophomore, 5'6", Tawan Hunter.
Yeah, and they were playing. They played their last football game today as we're recording this. They took Lena right down to the goal line and threw a pick in the end zone. I was listening to that game online. So I don't know how many of those kids are going to be playing basketball, but they got one day to get ready for the season. They'll be fine. They're in that new Chicagoland Christian Conference that we previously touched on. Everybody else in that sectional is just going to come down to, can you get past Marshall? They've nipped at their heels for a few years. They just haven't been able to get it done. This may be the year for that to happen, and we'll get to see what kind of new excitement Ronnie Fields brings to the program.
All right, we've got Galena coming up next. They're led by 6'5" senior Connor Glasgow.
Yeah, and I really like the point guards that they have, Caden Hauber and Parker Studman. They were starting as freshmen, and they're both juniors now. but this is going to have to be the year that they make it go, because Connor Glasgow is the difference maker for them offensively. When they get it going, they're about as good as any team can look. The problem that they had last year was consistency. I think they lost to East Dubuque 3 times, and East Dubuque was a 500 team, and that's a big rivalry game. So they're gonna have to not get scared of that East Dubuque jersey when they step on the floor, and they're going to play the first game of the season against each other again. So that'll be a nice quick test for them. They're in the Eastland Holiday Tournament, which has moved from post-Christmas to pre-Christmas this year, uh, alongside the Forreston Tournament. So there's some horse trading there with what teams are staying in what tournament, because usually a lot of those teams in the Forreston Tournament were in the Eastland Tournament. Not the case this year, but Galena, I could absolutely see them winning that sectional. As tough and talented of a sectional as that is.
17, we've got Griggsville Perry, and they're bringing back a ton.
Yeah, they bring back their entire roster from last year. I think they were about 23-9 last year. They defeated West Central twice. You know, when they look at my list, if they even know who the hell I am, they're going to think, why are we 12 spots lower than a team that we beat twice last year and we got everybody coming back? So they're going to have an opportunity to prove how wrong or how silly I am. They're going to be with West Central as the teams to beat in that WIVC. They play in the North Green Spartan Classic the first or second week of December. They're not in a Christmas tournament, which, you know, I'm a big fan of teams who are in Christmas tournaments, but they do have a full schedule. It's not like they're only playing 23 or 24 games. They're in the WIT right after New Year. They're in the Triopia Midwinter Tournament last week of January. This is a team that's going to be 26-5, 25-6, somewhere in that window by the time we roll into postseason. And it's traditionally that subsectional type sectional area is a free for all of loaded teams. You're going to have really good teams that aren't even playing for regional titles.
Next, we've got the defending Little 10 champs, Serena, and they bring back 4 key seniors: Hunter Staten, Richie Armour, Carson Baker, and Tanner Favor.
Yeah, the Huskers are back. They were a few possessions away from winning the Putnam County sectional last year. St. Francis de Sales hit a straightaway 3 at the horn and beat them. Well, they got enough coming back to be right back in that position again this year. They're at that Marquette Holiday Tournament. You know, I was worried about that Holiday Tournament when they moved that from Marseilles to Marquette. I really like that Marseilles gym.
The grade school.
But the Marquette gym was awesome. You know, they don't fit a lot of people in that place, but the parking situation isn't great there. But that's a really fun holiday tournament.
Yeah, that'll be. I mean, it's unfortunate they had Seneca depart from that, because that would have added a lot to it. But it still should be pretty fun once you get to the last 4 for sure. So, all right, we've got your alma mater checking in next at number 19, Mounds Meridian. They bring back Javion Ransom, Shamar Easley, Cole Kaufman. This is a team I really liked from last year, but they've got some transfers coming in.
They do. They have 5 transfers that have cleared waivers, so to speak, and are allowed to play sports at Meridian this year. Will Thurston is listed 6'5". You know, he may be a short 6'5", but he's an athlete, 2-sport type athlete. Jadion Reed, who is you know, if they still had the dunk contest at state, Jadion Reed would win it, because this kid is some of the videos that I've been receiving from back home are eye popping. And then they have 3 kids come over from Egyptian: Fennell Woodson, Zion Stoner, and Cassius Woodson. They're underclassmen. I don't, you know, they may be impactful this year, but this group, and you gotta give credit where credit is due. David Davidson stepped in to that head coaching spot, and he was a starting point guard. He was a 4-year starting point guard for this program, and he was on that 2015 team that got beat by Brimfield in the state tournament game. He knows the game. He's growing as a coach. I'm excited to see what this team can do. I just it's kind of like Mike O'Brien with Joliet West. You know, you don't know if your heart gets in the way or not. We may find out in a month that this was way too low, or we may find out that it was way too high. Uh, but they won the sectional last year, and they'll be favored to win it again this year, in my opinion.
Well, that deep run definitely I think bodes well for those younger kids that played last year, and yeah, I think you got them right where you need them. All right, we've got number 20 Marshall out of Chicago, and they bring back a lot of seniors. We think Marquise Williams, Keandre Pitts, 6'4" senior. Antonio Tyler is a 6'6" senior, and these guys were big last year.
They were big. You know, they've won back-to-back sectionals, and Scales has beat them at the Convocation Center in DeKalb back-to-back years. 2 years ago, they graduated all their guards. So then last year, they're really big, and all the talented big kids graduated last year. So now they're left with a mix of guards, and they still have height, but you know they had like 6'8", 6'9" kids last year who carried all the water for them for the most part. So they have a lot of these kids have an opportunity to make a name for themselves. They're going to be in the hunt for the White West. It's a fun division to follow. I like following that particular conference every year because it's just, you know, Chicago West Side hoops is well, it's not what it was, but it's still worth watching.
I enjoyed watching them play a couple times last year. I saw them play at in the regional final against Manly. I was at Marshall, and then early in the year, I ended up going over to Austin and seeing them. Checking in at number 21, we have Hinkley Big Rock. They're led by Martin Ledbetter, a 6'5" junior, and he's good on the court and on the baseball field, isn't he, Aaron?
From what I gather, he's their all-time leading home run hitter after 2 years of scholastic sports. So he's built in a way that you could see that on the baseball field, but I really like the way that he moves on the court. There's not anyone in that conference built like him. I don't know if he's necessarily the best player in the conference. Easily a first team all conference. He's probably going to be an all-state kid with the numbers that he's going to put up. From a postseason standpoint, is where they go, the path that they take. They were with the Chicago schools last year, and with some of the Chicago area schools dropping down into 1A, they may get pushed into the Northwest sectional with Peck and Scales and Fulton. They may prefer that path because you know they won a regional last year and they got beat by Marshall in that first round of that sectional. It's going to be an uphill battle for them to win a sectional, but you know you could say that about 95% of the teams out there.
They also bring back a trio of some really good production: Tyler Smith, Landon Roop, Max Hinch. So they'll be fun to watch too. Manly, who's another team that's out of the city, that's really started to make some noise, and they've got a superstar in July Love, a 6'6" sophomore.
Yeah, he's progressing, he's tracking, he's projecting as a surefire Division I prospect. So you automatically think, well, can they keep him for 2 more years? But I don't know if I don't know if they'll have a problem hanging on to him or not. But they got a transfer from Farragut, point guard Jonathan Calmise. A really nice pickup for them because they, Jolly Love's the only starter coming back from last year, and they were like 27-4 last year. The Keandre Washington kid was one of the best 1A players I saw all year last year, and so Calmise is going to have to, not do everything that Keandre did, but he's gonna start. That's going to be a nice 1-2 punch for them. They're going to be in that White West with Marshall, Jones. Jones is like they're the only 4A school in that White West, but they always provide some challenges for some of the smaller schools on the West Side. They're at the Chuck Dayton Holiday Tournament again, so I was able to go and see them there last year. I'm going to try to see them the first night of the season. They're down at the Rich Township Shootout. They play Urbana. They're probably going to have a few more losses this year than they did last year because they're in that blue division last year, which is not good. But they're going to be right where they were last year come postseason.
Yeah, they'll be an exciting team to keep an eye on for sure, and it's good for that school because they've been off the scene here for quite a while. So
They really have.
KZ Westfield is our 23rd team on the list. Cole Gilbert, Connor Sullivan, Nolan Clement, a 6'2 sophomore, and they've got Hayden Parcel, a junior, coming back.
Yeah, this is another one of those programs that is always on the cut line for 1A and 2A. Almost automatically put them in the preseason just because they're traditionally a 2A school, and they always have a good basketball team. They battled injuries last year. Football kind of wiped them out and derailed their basketball season before it even started, provided that they are healthy. And the one kid graduated. I think Cole Gilbert was the other kid that was injured, so he's back. Uh, they tied for the conference title last year, and I think they're the only 1A school in that conference. It's Lawrenceville, Marshall, Mount Carmel, Newton, Olney, Paris, and Robinson. They were in that sectional final against Tuscola last year. Or no, they lost to Altamont, right? That was
They
the game that you
lost.
were at.
Yeah, that was that was one heck of a comeback. 24, St. Ed's, Green Waves. Matt Morris, 6'3 junior. Caden Dawson, a 6'6 senior. Josh Portoff, a 6'2 junior, and Josh Fowl, 6'5 senior.
Yeah, they're 1A for the first time. So again, another one of those situations where, there could have been a dozen other teams in this spot, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. They're traditionally a 2A school. I like the size. The conference will tell us really what we need to know about them. That the non-conference schedule isn't that great. They're in the Elgin Holiday Tournament, which I'm glad to see that the Elgin Holiday Tournament is back, because it was literally dead for about 4 or 5 years. I don't know when I'll be able to see them, if I will be able to see them. But as I said, they're in that Chicagoland Christian Conference. That'll give us a pretty good idea of what we can expect from them, and they're going to feed into most likely that west side, west suburban sectional. So it looks to be a lot better than what it was last year, just because of the teams you got dropping down.
And they open up in that Westminster Thanksgiving tournament too, which I know Aurora Christian is on the other side of the bracket, and they could possibly run
Yeah.
into, I don't know. I know they're not on the list, but Chicago Horizon Southwest is another team that looks super intriguing too. So I guess Aurora Christian is going to be tested in that first game as well, because they open up with them. But St. Ed's one to
Yeah,
keep an eye on.
I'm gonna try to go to that as a nightcap for that opening night, because Aurora Christian does play them, and we've seen a little bit of juice on social media about that Horizon Science team. They got a little size, so I'll see pretty quick if they're just big or if they are good. And again, I hope they're good, because that would be really cool to see.
Arcola, the Purple Riders, they've got four seniors. Gerardo Alunis, Tyson Lewis, Jackson Miller, and Ryan Lindstrom are the four leaders that they bring back.
Yeah, I always like to make the joke, your cola, my cola, our cola. They with the falling out of what happened at LSA, they're going to be the favorite to win that Lincoln Prairie Conference. The strength of schedule isn't going to be great. That conference it'll provide a couple of challenges. AO will probably push them. They're at Salt Fork, their second game of the year, and Salt Fork has some players coming back, and I was considering them for a preseason top 25 spot. So that's a game to keep an eye on. And they go to Shelbyville, and Shelbyville has some talent coming back too, and they're 2A. That could be a loss. I think the win-loss record by the time late February rolls around, you're going to be looking at I don't know, 24-4, somewhere in there. Unfortunately, they're in that really, really good sectional. So depending on how the postseason draw goes, they can win a regional, and they might have to hang their hat on that.